We want to welcome all of His Glory Nation from east to west to north to south to the latest episode of A Window into the Supernatural. I am Jordan Oliver, and joining us today is Nathan Reynolds. Nathan is an author, international speaker, farmer, and consultant on everything from trauma to tomatoes. His early career in the United States Army left him plagued with a ferocious drive to execute justice, no matter the cost. Upon leaving the Army, he spent the next 10 years in the minefield of psychology, trying to mend the shattered souls around him. Along the way to his current life, he's been a wilderness mentor, an executive protection agent, transport specialist, chef for the homeless, and a market seller of beets and beans alike. His wife, Chelsea, along with their two daughters, now travel the country in an RV, cultivating the furrowed fields of organic farms, backyard bistros, and fossil-laden springs of new life. The new Reynolds family is on a quest to see the captives of crime, cowardice, and comfort set free. So, Nathan, welcome on to A Window into the Supernatural. I am really, really looking forward to hearing your testimony today.
Thank you so much, Jordan, for having me on. I'm really delighted to be here as well.
Well, it sounds like you have really had your hand in so many different areas of life. And that's why I'm just so excited to hear more about really starting with your personal journey. I always love to start out asking guests to kind of go back and start from the beginning so that we can get to know you and what led you on your path to, and even to knowing God, going back to when you first encountered God. And then we'll go from there, because I know you also have a book that sounds very interesting. The title is Snatched from the Flames, One Man's Journey to Uncover the Family Secrets Buried in His Bloodstained Past. So I definitely want to get into that, Nathan, but I'll hand it over to you to just start from the beginning and tell us your story.
Well, thank you again. Yeah, well, my story really started out with a very split home. And I don't mean that because my parents were divorced, but because there was a war that was being perpetually waged in my household and over my life and the lives of the people around me. And I grew up where the supernatural was very revelatory, was something that was easily seen and identified, because on one side, my family operated in normal Christianity, but on the other side, they also embraced this very radical, intelligent evil. And they were willing to pass their children through these fires of abuse and of torture in order to try to grow their family business. And so I come from a family that really has been a part of organized crime, but not the typical kind of mafia style that maybe has been portrayed or put into the sights and the eyes of people, but they really are practitioners of a much older religion. These people that really go back to this great brotherhood of the snake. And I grew up in this area called Flagstaff, Arizona, and every so often my family would take me down to Lake Havasu City, Arizona. And it was there in Lake Havasu City where my family operated really an underground crime organization specifically centered around the Knights of Columbus, the Roman Catholic Church, and the Jesuits down there. And really the town of Lake Havasu City, Arizona, for those of you that are unfamiliar, was founded back in the 1960s and early 70s by Robert P. McCulloch and a guy named C.V. Wood, the designer of Disneyland, to facilitate the production and the engineering of a lot of child abuse. And the city of London, which is the financial empire of the world, purchased an area of an island that was created in Lake Havasu City, and they made it a legal sovereign territory, just like the United States has legal sovereign territories like embassies. And they control that little sovereign territory. And it really allowed a legal safety zone for people that wanted to practice these really disgusting pleasures on children. And so I was caught up in this really dark coven, these great brotherhood of the serpent, these people that really worship Satan, but not in the form that you and I might picture him. If you've been raised in the Christian mindset, you have this adversarial mindset against Satan and against the adversary, but really they worship him in this kind of Luciferian ideology, this Gnostic doctrine that he is the one who brought illumination, who brought godhood, apotheosis through knowledge, through a balancing between good and evil, through an understanding of that. And so they believe really children are a form of currency that can be passed around. And so I went through a radical shattering of my identity, a systemic abuse, so that I would become completely convinced that there was no way out of this cult, that there was no way out of this brotherhood, and I was going to be trapped in that throughout my life. And so that by the time that kind of got cemented in me,
hold on, Nate. Can I just pause you for 1 minute with a couple questions on some things you've hit? So you're talking about specifically Is what you're talking about satanic ritual abuse, SRA? We've heard that talked about sometimes here on with some different people on the show. Is that what you would say that you was done to you? Satanic ritual abuse?
I mean, absolutely. They wouldn't identify necessarily as Satanists in the same way. I think satanic ritual abuse is a junk drawer term to describe a lot of the ritualistic abuse that's being used to facilitate the worship of other deities, but indeed, these people were very steeped in Luciferianism, and they were embracing this worship of the dragon, as these children were being abused in order to open spiritual doorways, like almost like a phone book, a directory being dialed to the demonic in order to open those doorways to try to communicate with these beings. This is the arts of divination, people that are trying to look into the future, and they use abuse of children as a means to contact specific entities. So yes, it's absolutely satanic ritual abuse in no uncertain terms.
And Nathan, so you're saying that the way I like how you said that in Christianity, we look at Satanism as the adversary, as the opposition. But are you saying that with what you're in this cult or these organizations you were seeing or part of, they're actually worshiping Satan? They think of him as an actual being, like he is the God, how we would picture Jesus. Do they picture Satan to be a person who is Satan?
And he, in their perspective, is the one who came to set them free from the domineering, Yahuwah, the great creator, the one who was withholding from them what they wanted, what they needed in order to be that. And so he's the one, like almost as Prometheus or these other deities, open their eyes to the true godhood, a path of ascension. And so that was really the ideological pursuit that they have towards the dragon, is that really this is the one who can give you the power of foretelling, being able to know the future, being able to know what's going to happen, and then to have power and control, the one that you could communicate with. Whereas the creator was viewed as the true one that withheld from man what they needed. And so it's a very deep Gnostic, doctrines of demons. That's truly what you're dealing with.
Yes, absolutely. And my last question before you have to keep going with your story is, are there different sects within and like sectors within this? Like you said, the Brotherhood, I think you said the Brotherhood of the Snake. I know that we hear of different organizations, even like the Illuminati, with bigger the terms like that. But what were you specifically a part of, or your family was specifically part of one that had a specific name?
Well, the one that was predominantly operating down there in Lake Havasu City was indeed based off of the Jesuits, who are also like founders of things like the Illuminati. That same practitioners of that through the Roman Catholic Church. That being said, there were other sects that were brought in because they don't waste a product, and they really view child abuse and the systemic, they're capturing blackmail evidence. Secrecy and compromise were the currency of my family. And they really profiteered off of ways of capturing information on other individuals that were participating in these rituals and these acts. And then they would use that as a means of favors or blackmail against those individuals later on in life. But there was also physiological byproducts that were created during these events, that children were being tortured and abused. Those were sold to other cults. Like there was a Mormon cult that was operating in Show Low, Pine Top, Lakeside in Arizona, where those products were brought to during their rituals, during their ceremonies, very similar to Freemasonic ceremonies that were being used to enhance and alter the states of consciousness to try to open people up during those rituals. So there was different cults that would operate. There's other ones that operated in Colorado, where my family moved to and relocated, that were much more military based, that were not satanically driven in the same way. They weren't religious in that same fervor, but they were very much like the gods of patriotism, were everything, that we could sacrifice everybody for the sake of the nation as a whole. So there was different sects that were within the cults. Absolutely.
Okay. And I'm sorry, I said that was the last one, but you just made me think of one more. And I just was having this conversation the other day with a friend talking about this issue with the children. And to me, there is nothing worse than this when we're talking about what's being done to children. Do you know why children are this disgusting abuse and sexual abuse with them, why that is the currency of Satan's economy? How I'll say it. Why is it the children? What is it from them that they believe they're getting what power are they getting from them?
Well, first of all, you got to understand where the kingdom of darkness gets its power from, and it's truly from iniquity. That was the one single characteristic that was first time it was ever discovered was in Halal ben Shahar, in Lucifer, when he tried to set himself up above the Most High, when he tried to exalt himself, when he declared his five I wills, his path of ascension, when he did that iniquity, which is like not just like sin is transgression of the law, but then when you continue to commit those sins, you develop transgression, which is like a rebellion towards obedience, righteousness. But then when you absolutely commit yourself to it, this is iniquity. And that truly is where an alteration takes place. This is a different energy force, because once he was cast out of the heavens, once any of these mighty ones, these immortals, these Ophanim, the seraphim, any of these, the cherubim, these angels, these immortals that rebel, they lose that power source to the Most High. They no longer have that. That's his holiness, his set apartness. So they need a new battery bank. They need a new way of generating energy. And the way that they do that is through iniquity. That is the force, like whatever you're looking at Steven Spielberg and a lot of these esoteric indoctrinations of our society and the propaganda to try to occultify, make people embrace the occult through entertainment. They're really trying to get people to embrace iniquity, which is the power source for the kingdom of darkness. So when they're trying to get people to sin and open those doors in transgression and get that rebellious mindset to take place, like it says, the God of this age has blinded the eyes of non-believers so that they cannot see the truth, cannot receive the good news of the gospel of the kingdom. Like that's that force that's being used to cover them up, has different means with which to recharge itself. One of the most powerful ways to do that is desecration of innocence, is the destruction of things that would be pure. And so there's nothing that truly is more pure in our creation than a child that's in the womb, than a child that is freshly born and is innocent and is uncorrupted in a sense. And so that is why, especially with a lot of things like that come from Theosophy and these other schools from Helena Blavatsky and Aleister Crowley and a lot of people that embrace this, even like towards the Anunnaki and the Nazis, they began to embrace this iniquity force, and the desecration of children is what they believe is the most powerful source with which one can draw upon in order to activate a lot of these latent energies, that force to come forward, whether it's the Kundalini or different people have different languages to describe this because of Babel and what happened with Nimrod and the mystery religions when they took place over the earth. But that spell that gets unleashed upon people when children are desecrated is what fuels the kingdom of darkness. It's the foundation source with which these bloody empires are built.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yes. I mean, this is interesting too. Out with that, I was just having a discussion with my sisters, and we were, in scripture, and my sister said, I wonder if children too, because in the Bible, Jesus says, you must be like a child to enter, to see the kingdom, and to enter it, you have to be like a little child. So she was just kind of seeing that in a bigger picture, like maybe Satan, that's when, because he fell from the kingdom, to get back in, maybe that could be connected to that. I don't know. Have you ever heard anything on that? Or do you think that maybe that could be a connection somehow as well, like in a spiritual context?
Well, I think the enemy wants to desecrate the body of the Messiah in any way he can. Like his goal is to set himself into the temple of the Most High. That's like within us is where the spirit is supposed to reside. The set apart spirit is supposed to dwell. And so he seeks to desecrate the body. This is what his first target was. The satanic infiltration of the church was the absolute immediate goal of Satan. As soon as the church began to flourish, the ecclesia, he went to set himself in with Ananias and Sapphira. He tried to infiltrate that arena. Now, if people are walking in their authority, they understand their identity, they're able to detect their adversary and cast them away from them. However, most believers are raised without the meat of the word. They're raised without an understanding of the spiritual mechanics of the kingdom of darkness. They're raised with ignorance of the devil, which is his camouflage. As long as people maintain ignorance of the dragon, they're going to be unaware of his schemes, and they're going to be taken captive by him to do his desires. And so when they do that, Satan gets that foothold into people's lives. When the adversary takes control of them and rules over them, now he's desecrating the kingdom of the Messiah. He's desecrating the body, so that this is like cancer in our liver that's poisoning us. When one of our brothers or sisters is consumed by the kingdom of darkness, or they're being desecrated and being drawn in to participate in things like yoga and things like transcendental meditation and the opening of these gateways to these through these drugs and these different things. When they're doing that, we're literally destroying and defiling our own bodies. And when our brothers or sisters engage in that, it's like these children that are being destroyed, because that innocence is now corrupted. And that's fundamentally the goal of the kingdom of darkness, and their agenda is to turn people, to blind them, to destroy them, to augment them. That is what the word satanic really means. It's leading astray. It's taking people away and perverting them out of, and twisting them out of the image of our creator and into the image of a beast. But that is what Yeshua, literally our Messiah, came to set us free from, that perversion, and give us our identities back so that we could be adopted as sons and daughters of Elohim. That's the goal of the kingdom. That is why we're supposed to preach the kingdom to every creature, so that we can get restoration of those that have been taken captive and defiled.
Wow. Wow. Oh, this is just, I'm so glad that you are really taking us deep into, because we have, in these past couple of years with the exposure, more and more has been coming out. And I think the body of Christ has truly been awakening to the reality of Satan, because you're absolutely right. Prior to these awakening years, the church as a whole they really have not been teaching on spiritual warfare and how real the demonic and Satan is. So the fact, I think people lately have been hearing more of these general terms, and they are starting to know. But you, Nathan, I love that you are really explaining this, and it really makes perfect sense. Now I want to go back to your story, because I want to hear too how did you get out of this, if you were being raised in it, and how old were you when did you have an encounter with Jesus? Did the Holy Spirit come to you, and what did that look like for you, kind of starting to move out?
Yeah, I mean, when I was raised seeing this power in the occult, I was raised in seeing this power in the kingdom of darkness. And so when I would go to church and I would go to see pastors on stage, I didn't see power being demonstrated. I'm sitting next to abusers, and the pastor is lacking discernment to even identify a wolf in this flock, and so I was raised with this defeatist mentality, and it was really hopeless. But when I was 7 years old, I saw on TV these guys named the Power Team, who were like, used to travel around and preach, and were super yoked out bros, super buff dudes. And they would bend bars of iron and tear phone books in half and do all this stuff. And they were like, we're weak men, but Jesus Christ is the one who has made us strong. And if you want to be strong, you call out Jesus and he will make you mighty. And I was like, I want that. Yeah. I wanted that power. I wanted that authority. I wanted that. And so that was the first time I had a power encounter with Jesus, and that was that process where he began to come into me and teach me a different way of living. I had a voracious appetite for the word at a very early age, and I devoured the scriptures because I believed that was the only source of truth I could ever identify in the world. I was raised around perpetual manipulators, people that were using me and abusing me and exploiting me throughout my life. I got connected to this kingdom of violence very quickly on, where I wanted justice. And so they twisted that and perverted that to where justice was found for me to be executed, to go after these people who I knew were pedophiles and abusers of children. They would let me go after them on occasion to try to hunt them down and murder them and kill them for these covens. And so I thought I was finally getting a chance to fight back, and I believed I was getting freedom by stomping out the evil that was in the world. And this led all the way into the United States military and getting emancipated to the United States government at 17 years old as a junior in high school, and starting to work with basically special kill teams, people that go out and do undercover investigations and eliminate people that they say are bad guys. But I found corruption in the United States Army just as thick as it was in the occult. It just didn't have the spiritual flavor, the spiritual darkness flavor on it, but it still was so corrupted. And I was really, all my identity and all of my idolatry of being a hero for the nation was broken there. And I lost all of my hope. I lost all of my purpose. But I believe because I was in the military, I finally had a way out. I finally could get free from this cult. But I got out of the military within a few years and literally was just a shattered shell of a man. And I had no idea what my purpose was. And it was really from that place that I had a powerful encounter with the Messiah, delivering me in a moment where I was dying. And he spared my life, and he literally called me his. He restored to me that early calling. When I was 18 years old, he reminded me that he had purchased my life, that he had bought me, ransomed me from death, and that I was his. And so I devoted myself to trying to come out of this, to trying to persevere and get free from this. But it really took years of my life, and ultimately meeting a woman who was outside of this entire system, who had nothing to do with it. And she had this passionate love for me and this willingness to sit with me as I had to open up these horrific things that I had gone through, and that she labored with me and showed me unconditional love that only a husband or a wife can show to each other. And she demonstrated me trust and faithfulness, and it allowed me to start to begin to fight back against this and to begin to come against this. And ultimately, when she conceived our daughter Naomi, I had a choice whether or not I was going to give my daughter Naomi to the family in order to go through these same abuses like I did so that I could have access to the trust fund? Or were we going to break out of this cult and do whatever it took to get out? And that's what we ended up choosing, was that we would come out as adversaries against that kingdom and speak the secrets and expose the unfruitful works of darkness for what they were, so that there could be deliverance and healing to the nations. Because that's ultimately what we were born to do, is to set captives free.
Wow. Okay. There. Yeah. That is absolutely what I do believe as the kingdom we are all called to do, is freedom, bring freedom. I remember looking up that word, even how everyone says Jesus saves. And I really wanted to look what if you translate that back in I forgot if it was the Hebrew or the Greek, but the original context, and saved actually means to set free, to be delivered. And, and it really is about living, and not just having that freedom when we die, but here on earth living a free life, and, in true freedom by what he defines that as. And I'm curious, Nathan, what is that healing process to have gone through some of the things that you went through? Do you believe that truly the only possible way that you can heal is through the power of Jesus Christ from the trauma of these horrific things? And with that, is there anything in particular that, if anybody listening right now is involved with this or trying to heal, that you would advise them in their healing process to do?
You bet. I think fundamentally, there's a lot of areas you can get healing and restoration in your body that don't require Jesus Christ and a relationship with him. However, I believe for true deliverance, like you said, true deliverance, because systemically there is a spiritually transmitted disease that comes with abuse, especially sexual abuse and psychological and manipulation, and this abuse that requires an appeal to the Most High, the judge of all the earth, like we read about in Psalm 94. You need to be in a covenant relationship with the Creator in order for him to be able to drive off these adversaries that have labored so diligently, because you're dealing with generational iniquity. You're dealing with curses and demonic familiar spirits, family spirits, generational spirits, and you require a cleansing of your bloodline in a powerful and profound way, which means you need to be adopted into a new kingdom, and you need to have deliverance brought from that. So fundamentally, I think it's absolutely critical, the power of repentance. Like there's a ministry called Kingdom Intelligence Briefing. Dr. Michael Lake and Mary Lou, this is one of his books I highly recommend, The Sharith Imperative. He has another one that's called The Shinar Directive. These are absolutely invaluable. Dr. Michael Lake and his wife, Mary Lou Lake, have a ministry that was fundamentally critical at helping me, because they had a lot of prayer resources on praying and breaking a lot of these strongholds that were intimately connected to that. And that was a very foundational portion of my healing and my restoration. But it also is, for those of you that are trying to understand and identify how the kingdom of darkness operates, how the kingdom of righteousness is supposed to operate, I highly recommend their resources. They're absolutely fantastic. And along with that, the journey of healing and trauma, I think foundationally, it required radical acceptance of what it was that I had gone through, and deliverance from doubt. Truly, like I needed to believe that my Creator could heal me no matter what I'd been through. Fundamentally, I needed a restoration of my identity. Just like most of us out there are lost in our identities. We don't really know who we are because we don't understand whose we are. And we have literally been disinherited from the most basic understanding of an intimate relationship that we're supposed to have with the one who made us and the one who fashioned us with a purpose in mind. And until that identity is restored to us, we are lost. And that is truly why we are lost sheep living amongst wolves. And he came, the great chief shepherd came to call us to him. The sheep are supposed to hear his voice and follow him. And if we can learn to set our minds on him, to wash ourselves in the water of the word, foundationally, like one of the things I put forth, I have my audiobook available, but I also have the entirety recordings of the scripture from Genesis to Revelation that I did, because to me, the most imperative thing that anyone can learn is their identity. And you find that from Genesis to Revelation. You're not just going to find that in the book of John. You're not just going to find that in the Apostle Paul's writing. You're going to find that in every word that has ever been given, because that's the sword that we need in order to contend against our adversaries that are out there. Alongside of that, I also found incredible healing physiologically, because I needed a lot of support in drinking spring water and getting my body, physically cleansing out my body, detoxifying my body from a lot of the stuff that I'd been through. Was detoxing through drinking spring water. That was foundational to it, as well as going outside and being outside and getting in his creation, his nature. That's why I ended up becoming a farmer and ended up traveling around the country and learning about all of these different incredible things that were out there, whether it was fresh milled flour and making my own breads and natural fiber garments. All of these things began to teach me natural remedies and going out and foraging. All of these became these amazing ways that my creator provided for me restoration of my body and my family. And he's given us a new purpose now. So we have just absolutely been amazed to see what can happen when you commit your life to him. When you give him your everything, he will transform it and make it into something better than you could ever hope or imagine.
Yes. Oh, amen to that. And honestly, Nathan, hearing this, your testimony, I mean, that is proof. When I hear all of our testimonies with God, are proof of how real he is. But some like yours, I mean, this is radical. This is truly like you are like a Bible story hearing this. And when you hear, it's just the different levels, I guess, to what people go through in their testimonies. Hearing this, to me, it is the ultimate proof. I always feel like our spirits, even if our minds can't understand things, I feel like your spirit recognizes truth when it hears it and gravitates. And hearing your words and this, even of your teaching about the kingdom and your knowledge into the kingdom of darkness, into that, I know it's true. I know it's real, and the power of God, how real that is. So, wow, I just want to thank you for sharing this, because I cannot even fathom. Is it hard sometimes when you have to retell some of this? Does that take you back, or do you feel like you've kind of moved past that? I don't know if this is something that you do move past, but what do you think about that? And then we'll wrap up. We're to the end of our time.
I do think
need more time with you, but that's okay. That's okay. Yeah. Just tell me your thoughts on that.
Yeah. I just, it's something that indeed has taken a lot of time to deal with. Sometimes it's absolutely brutal to relive it, but other times you do get to see the power to set captives free. And ultimately it's worth it. There's no greater love than this, than when a man lays down his life for his friends, so I'm honored to lay my life down for others.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, I know that when you get to heaven and you are going to see, I'm sure the ripple effect of just the work that you're doing for the kingdom is, you can't even imagine it now, but when you see it, I think it's going to be unbelievable. So thank you so much. And as we do wrap up here, Nathan, just let everybody know any website you have, any social media, how people can find your book, really any platform that you have.
They can go to snatchedfromtheflames.com. That's the best way to go there. I've got my audiobook available, my ebook, the scriptures, like I said earlier, are downloadable there. And those are available for free. You can name your own price. I make those available, a digital book as well. You can also go to youtube.com/Nathan Reynolds. I've got a channel there with about 500 videos that you guys can check out as well. And on Rumble, you can go to the LinenRailroad, and TikTok, I'm at Snatched from the Flames. So really appreciate you taking the time to have me on here. It's been an absolute wonderful journey with you guys. So thanks again.
Thank you so much. God bless you and your wife and your children and just all of the work you're doing. And please keep us up to date with any new projects or endeavors that you're on, because we at His Glory, this is, we always say this is the time God's bringing the remnant together, and the power really is in the unity, all of us lifting each other up to get these testimonies and stories out there. So keep us posted, Nathan, with your journey. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for another episode of A Window into the Supernatural. Until next time, God bless you all, and go in His shalom.